Preparing for a Reference Data and Securities Master, ISIN, CUSIP, SEDOL, Data Quality Roles interview? You've reached Candy Mentor, and this video is for you. We'll walk through 15 key questions you're likely to face. For each one, you'll see what the interviewer is testing, the core concepts you should cover, and a sample answer. Subscribe, like, and share, and drop a topic request in the comments. Question 1. What is a Securities Master, and why is it important in a financial institution? The interviewer wants to assess your understanding of the Securities Master as a centralized reference data source and its importance across trading, operations, risk, accounting, and regulatory reporting workflows. While answering, focus on instrument attributes, golden source concepts, downstream system dependency, operational risk, and how poor Securities Master data can create trade breaks, valuation issues, and reporting errors. A Securities Master is the firm's golden source for instrument attributes. I'd describe it as the record that stores identifiers, issuer details, asset classification, currency, country, exchange, coupon, maturity, and corporate action relevant fields. The value is consistency. Trading, risk, operations, accounting, and reporting all consume the same validated data. If the master is wrong, downstream breaks appear as failed trades, bad valuations, incorrect NAV, or regulatory reporting errors. Question 2. Can you explain the difference between ISIN, CUSIP, and SEDOL? The interviewer is testing your understanding of major security identifiers, their regional usage, how they relate to each other, and whether you can apply them correctly in Securities Master maintenance. Make sure to cover ISIN as international, CUSIP as North American, SEDOL as UK and global market usage, plus the need to validate identifiers against issuer, listing, and instrument details. ISIN is the global identifier, CUSIP is mainly North America, and SEDOL is widely used for UK and international listings. For example, a US equity may have a CUSIP and an ISIN derived from it, while a London-listed security may carry a SEDOL. In practice, I never rely on one code blindly. I validate issuer, instrument type, currency, exchange, and effective dates before mapping identifiers across systems. Question 3. Walk me through how you would set up a new security in the Securities Master. This question evaluates your practical workflow knowledge, including request intake, vendor sourcing, attribute validation, maker-checker controls, enrichment, approval, and downstream publication to consuming systems. In your answer, talk about receiving the request, checking duplicates, sourcing from vendors, validating mandatory fields, applying asset class templates, obtaining approval, and confirming downstream system synchronization. I'd start by understanding the business request, asset class, intended trading venue, and urgency. Then I'd check whether the instrument already exists to avoid duplicates. Next, I'd source data from approved vendors, validate identifiers and core economic terms, enrich required fields, and run quality checks. After maker-checker approval, I'd release the record to downstream systems and monitor for rejects, booking issues, or missing attributes. Question 4. What data quality checks would you apply to Securities Master records? The interviewer wants to assess your knowledge of preventive and detective controls used to maintain accurate, complete, timely, and consistent reference data across multiple platforms. Be sure to mention completeness checks, format validation, cross-field logic, duplicate detection, vendor reconciliation, effective date controls, exception reporting, and escalation for unresolved or material data issues. I'd apply checks at several levels. First, completeness. Mandatory fields like identifier, currency, asset type, issuer, and maturity cannot be blank. Second, format and logic. ISIN length, valid country code, coupon greater than 0 for coupon bonds, and maturity after issue date. Third, reconciliation, compare vendor feeds and internal records. Finally, I'd monitor exceptions through dashboards, aging reports, and escalation rules to prevent unresolved data issues from hitting production. Question 5. How would you investigate a potential duplicate security in the Securities Master? The interviewer is testing your ability to resolve a common reference data issue by comparing identifiers, economic terms, listings, vendors, and downstream usage before making changes. While answering, focus on matching ISIN, CUSIP, SEDOL, issuer, currency, exchange, maturity, coupon, listing line, and transaction history before deciding whether to merge, deactivate, or retain records. I'd avoid deleting or merging records until I understand the full context. I'd compare identifiers, issuer, asset type, currency, listing exchange, issue date, maturity, coupon, and vendor source. If the records represent the same instrument, I'd check downstream trades, positions, pricing, and accounting links before proposing a merge or deactivation. If they are separate listings or share classes, I'd keep them distinct and improve the cross-reference mapping. Question 6. How do corporate actions affect reference data and securities master maintenance? This question evaluates your understanding of how events such as splits, mergers, redemptions, ticker changes, and identifier changes impact security records, positions, pricing, and downstream processing. Make sure to cover event types, effective dates, identifier changes, old to new mappings, security status updates, position conversion, coordination with corporate actions teams, and downstream communication. Corporate actions can change the identity or economics of a security, so reference data must be updated carefully. A merger may require a new issuer mapping, a stock split changes share quantities, and a redemption may change the security status to inactive. I'd focus on effective dates, old to new identifier links, vendor confirmation, and communication to trading, operations, and accounting. The key is preserving history while enabling correct future processing. Question 7. What do we mean by a golden source in reference data? The interviewer wants to assess whether you understand data governance, source hierarchy, vendor selection, and why firms define authoritative sources for each field or asset class. In your answer, talk about authoritative sources, vendor hierarchy, field-level ownership, conflict resolution, auditability, lineage, and why golden source rules reduce inconsistent data across downstream systems. A golden source is the approved authoritative source for a data element or record. It does not always mean one vendor for everything. A firm may use one source for identifiers, another for classifications, and another for pricing-related attributes. The important part is having a controlled hierarchy, documented field ownership, and clear override rules. When Bloomberg and Refinitiv disagree, the team needs a defined resolution process rather than ad hoc judgment. Question 8. What key reference data fields are critical for setting up a fixed income security? The interviewer is testing your asset class knowledge, especially whether you understand the economic terms needed for bond trading, settlement, accruals, pricing, accounting, and risk calculations. Be sure to mention issuer, ISIN or CUSIP, currency, coupon type, coupon rate, maturity, issue date, day count, payment frequency, seniority, callable features, and settlement conventions. For fixed income, the economics matter as much as the identifiers. I'd capture issuer, ISIN, or CUSIP, currency, issue date, maturity, coupon type, coupon rate, payment frequency, day count convention, business day convention, seniority, and callable or puttable features. Settlement conventions and accrued interest rules are also critical. If any of these fields are wrong, pricing, yield, accruals, risk, and NAV calculations can all be impacted. Question 9. How does setting up an equity differ from setting up a bond in the Securities Master? This question evaluates your ability to distinguish reference data requirements by asset class and explain how economic terms, trading conventions, and downstream use cases differ. While answering, focus on equity fields like ticker, exchange, share class, country, currency, and sector, versus bond fields like coupon, maturity, day count, and redemption terms. An equity setup is usually centered on listing details: ticker, exchange, MIC code, trading currency, country of risk, share class, sector, and issuer hierarchy. A bond setup is more economics heavy, with coupon, maturity, day count, payment schedule, seniority, and embedded options. Equities can have multiple listings and local tickers. Bonds often require accurate cash flow terms. The downstream risks differ. Equities affect trading and classification, while bonds affect accruals and yield. Question 10. How would incorrect reference data impact NAV production for an asset manager or fund administrator? The interviewer wants to assess your understanding of downstream dependencies between securities master data, pricing, income accruals, position valuation, reconciliation, and investor reporting. Make sure to cover mispricing, incorrect accruals, classification errors, FX issues, failed reconciliations, materiality assessment, NAV restatement risk, and the need for rapid escalation. Bad reference data can flow directly into NAV. If a bond coupon or day count is wrong, income accruals will be misstated. If currency or exchange data is wrong, valuation and FX translation may be incorrect. If an asset classification is wrong, reporting and compliance tests may fail. In NAV production, I'd prioritize materiality, affected funds, impacted dates, and whether the issue requires correction, client notification, or escalation to governance. Question 11. What is the role of issuer and LEI data in reference data management? This question evaluates your knowledge of issuer hierarchy, legal entity identifiers, counterparty or issuer mapping, and the importance of entity data for risk, compliance, and regulatory reporting. In your answer, talk about issuer identification, parent-child hierarchy, LEI usage, exposure aggregation, sanctions or compliance screening, regulatory reporting, and links between instruments and legal entities. Issuer data connects an instrument to the legal entity behind it. The LEI helps standardize that entity across systems and counterparties, which is important for regulatory reporting, exposure aggregation, and risk controls. I'd also maintain parent-child relationships, guarantor details, and country of risk where applicable. For example, two bonds may have different issuing vehicles, but the same ultimate parent, which matters for concentration limits and credit exposure reporting. Question 12. If a trader says a security is missing and needs urgent setup, how would you handle it? The interviewer is testing your ability to balance speed, control, communication, and operational risk when supporting front office or time-sensitive business requests. Be sure to mention triage, minimum required fields, duplicate checks, approved vendor sourcing, maker-checker review, temporary controls if needed, communication of status, and post-setup validation. I'd treat it as urgent, but not uncontrolled. First, I'd confirm the required trade date, asset class, and source documents. Then I'd perform a duplicate check and source the record from approved vendors. If timing is tight, I'd set up the minimum controlled fields needed for booking, with clear flags for follow-up enrichment. I'd communicate status to the trader and operations, then validate downstream acceptance after the record is published. Question 13. How do you approach identifier mapping across multiple systems? The interviewer wants to assess your understanding of symbology, cross-reference tables, system integration, identifier hierarchy, and controls used to prevent broken mappings or duplicate instruments. While answering, focus on primary and alternate identifiers, cross-reference tables, effective dates, vendor IDs, system-specific codes, mapping validation, exception handling, and ongoing reconciliation. Identifier mapping is about making sure different systems recognize the same instrument consistently. I'd maintain a cross-reference table containing ISIN, CUSIP, SEDOL, ticker, exchange code, vendor IDs, and internal security ID. I'd validate mappings against issuer, currency, asset class, and listing details. Effective dates matter because identifiers can change after corporate actions. I'd also reconcile mappings regularly, especially between order management, accounting, pricing, and risk platforms. Question 14. What KPIs or controls would you use to measure a reference data team's effectiveness? This question evaluates your understanding of operational management, service quality, data governance, exception monitoring, and how reference data teams demonstrate control and business value. Make sure to cover SLA adherence, first-time write rate, aged exceptions, duplicate rates, vendor breaks, downstream rejects, control breaches, audit findings, and root cause trend analysis. I'd track both speed and quality. Useful KPIs include request turnaround time, SLA adherence, first-time write rate, number of downstream rejects, aged exceptions, duplicate records, and vendor reconciliation breaks. I'd also monitor material incidents, audit findings, and recurring root causes by asset class or source. A strong team should not just close tickets quickly. It should reduce repeat issues and improve the reliability of downstream trading, accounting, and reporting. Question 15. You discover that a bond was set up with the wrong coupon rate after trades were already booked. What would you do? The interviewer is testing your incident management skills, including impact assessment, correction controls, communication, historical remediation, audit trail maintenance, and coordination with downstream teams. In your answer, talk about confirming the correct data, assessing affected trades and positions, notifying stakeholders, controlled amendment, recalculating accruals or valuations, documenting root cause, and preventing recurrence. I'd first confirm the correct coupon from reliable sources such as the prospectus or approved vendor data. Then I'd identify affected trades, positions, funds, accruals, valuations, and reporting dates. I'd escalate to operations, fund accounting, pricing, and control teams before amending the master record through the proper approval workflow. After correction, I'd ensure downstream recalculation or adjustment is completed. Document the incident and capture the root cause to prevent recurrence. If you are still with us, congratulations! You are much ahead of the rest and serious about preparing for your interview. We hope we were able to add value to your preparation and create some helpful content. Do not forget to like and share this video. Your small act can do great things for us.